Hi there, everyone. As the title should have given you some hint, this tutorial on Grand Tactician Civil War is going to take a look at fertility and production. And while I've pointed out in the past some of the things that maybe don't always make sense, fertility and production seems to work as one would expect, and it seems to maybe even matter more than one would think when it comes to production. Uh, Hopefully it bears out in this test, or else this is going to be a little embarrassing. But um, an area with fertility twice as high as another area, you might think would just have twice the output. But in all the tests I've run so far, it's more than twice the output. And so to try to show you, well, hopefully this works out, but to show you how that works, we're going to take the case of two lumber mills. This first one here, so you can see we are just northwest of I think we're... Oh, okay, so we're southwest of Carrollton, just barely. Uh, this as a site to build wood. Let's see. It's not that great in some respects. I mean, the fertility is pretty low in most of these places. I thought we had well, that's actually really good, 76%, but no, I'm looking for the one that's about 40 so that we can get a fair test. All right, that's pretty good right there. 42% fertility for wood is not generally good, but one of the pluses for this area is that what wood they do sell is, it fetches a high price, about as high as you're going to see anywhere. And so if for some reason we had to build it there or somewhere in that area, we could at least console ourselves a little bit with, well, it might be a little bit lower production, but we'll sell each piece for quite a bit. So that's 42% fertility for wood, and we're gonna compare that to, well, maybe. Okay, we're gonna go up here and let's see, 83%. So that's almost twice as high. When it comes to fertility, price level is going to be also 97%, so whatever they produce, and we would expect it to be twice more. I'm saying that based on past experience, it's more than twice the amount, and it's all going to be quite good. I don't know what workforce really matters as long as it's not zero or near zero. I assume that means that they can go in and do it. Maybe it is made up for in higher maintenance costs by higher wages. I really don't know about the labor availability. So that's going to do it for lumber camps, but we're going to stay paused here because we are going to take a look at, excuse me, farms and plantations, and take a look at the crops and some of the cash crops they produce. All right, and for my second trick, we are going to take a look at farms, and just trying to do this in kind of the same area so that I can remember where they are. And I got to remember that these are not the ones that are already built. But if we use Memphis as a point of reference here, there's this area. Let's see, 40%, 41% fertility is. Yeah, that's almost a nice round even number, because I think there's a spot around here that's 20%. So we're up here. Available workforce, again, whatever it means, it just seems like there's a lot, so that's fine. Price level of sold goods versus pre-goods. So unlike the lumber mills, which have no inputs, farms do. And so this is where you kind of need to pay attention to kind of what goes in, what goes out. However, the way I thought the only input that farms had was forage, and they also produce forage, and they usually produce more than they consume. And then plus they produce a whole bunch of other stuff, including crops. So here we are. Remember, if you don't know where generally better places are, you just click on the map filter, and since we're kind of interested in crops, we do this, and it's a heat map, so generally the darker the red, the higher the fertility in that area. So keep that in mind if you're looking for these places. But we're here just to test to see what production and value look like. So, all right, we'll do 41% there. And so I probably should make a note that the place just west of Memphis is the higher productivity one. And then over here, okay, 16% fertility, that's low, that's too low. Actually, I want it to be about 20% so that we can get... Oh, there we go. Can I do it? There we go. All right, so this is a fine spot. Again, the price level of sold goods versus pre-goods or precursor goods, they're both very expensive, and so you would think that one would kind of produce the other, but farms produce a lot more than the forage they put in. And I think the forage is usually pretty cheap. I actually don't know that, but I would assume so. Lots of available workforce, but half the fertility. So we're going to plop that one down there, and that is kind of south of the midpoint of Corinth. Well, actually, it's pretty much just barely southwest of Corinth. So when after we do the next thing, we'll hit play, and then we'll fast forward in time, and we'll check out the results. All right, so we just got the word that our 2 lumber mills were completed. So, let's see. We know that one of them is, well, apparently not here, but it's, it's around. Okay, the Muskogee Lumber Camp, and then the other one is... it was in and around here. Usually you can see the camps a little bit. Okay, we don't need to know that from my auto-resolve. The farms haven't yet finished, but we can't, actually we can tell a little bit. Holy moly. We can tell a little bit about what's going on. If we click on it, right, so we know that 262,000 pieces of wood. This is at the 82% fertility. And then the Muskogee whatever one, that's only 54,000, right? So with 40 or 41% fertility, we got 54,000. And this is, right, initially. These places just got up and running. It took them about a month to get built. And so we'll see if anything changes after that. Notice that their production is up 200%. I don't know exactly why. It is one of the peculiarities of these. I think we'll take a look when we get in there, but at 262,000, this is 5 times the amount of output that the place with 40% fertility have. And I think the available workforce, well, we can find out, but 72% there is something, 58%. I mean, there is a difference, but I don't know how big. But let's take a look at the value of what they're doing. Factories are great, but that's not what we're interested in. And notice that the font of things you construct is slightly different. It's these two, look at, ruin your eyes, it's worth it. Compared to the rest of these, it's a little bit thinner font. So if you're looking for it, that's one of the things that will tell you. But notice that they just got up and they're all max efficiency. I put this in the Steam forums. Developers know about it, and it sounds like it's something to be worked on. So there's a lot of stuff that's similar, right? The workforce size, like 2 more people. But the value of the production, I mean, this is the difference in production, but the value of the enterprises, I guess, right? They cost the same to make. It's much, much higher for the place that had 80, 81% fertility than the place that had 40 or 41% fertility. So let's check on our farms real quick. They've got to be close to being done. Yeah, they're there. I think I'll just... Well, we'll just watch them play through because it's only going to be a little bit of time. But again, this one over here between Corinth, this was the low fertility site, and this one here west of Memphis, I don't know if there's an... Oh, okay, just barely northeast of Little Rock is the other one. I mean, this one has more... the low fertility one has better access to more rail lines. But the one over here, Memphis to Little Rock, has proximity to rivers. Now, I don't really think that those matter too much, but there we go. So we take a look at, all right, White River, sounds nice. Bridge Farms, lots of forage coming in. So we talked about, I think this area had expensive, let's just slow down here because I am going to run things forward here shortly. But 10,000 pieces coming in and 16,000 pieces coming out. So again, the fact that the input cost is high, right, is usually negated by the fact that the output is high and farms produce all this other stuff, right? All that. Okay, you can read it, so you get it. We're just eyeballing it here. We're going to take a look at the production stuff next. So this is 10. I just wonder something. 10,000. So this is weird, right? This is the high fertility area. 10,000 forage in, 16,000 forage out. This is 10,000 forage in, 18,000 out. You would think in a place with half the fertility, I would think, that the forage out would be lower than the place with higher fertility. That's what I would think. All right, let's take a look and see if maybe we're getting a limited view of things, and we'll turn to the farms. There we go. I'm gonna have to find. Okay, that White River Bridge Farms is one, and I think the Corinth Farms is the other. So, yeah, I mean, I hate looking like an idiot, but it does happen, right? And this is, let me make sure this happens, but right now what this is showing is actually that the fertility didn't matter. This is the place, right? Yeah, it's Corinth Farms. That's the one we built, the level 1. So, we're on the right one. So Corinth Farms has more laborers. It actually has a slightly higher output ratio than the White River Bridge ones that had twice the fertility. So I should also say that when I tested this, I only tested it with lumber mills. And so I knew what the results were going to be for that. I did not know here that this would be the results. I recall in both those examples, the ratios of input to output I think were about the same. Again, it's mostly forage. And so I'm not sure why the Corinth Farms are either doing relatively well, or if it's just that the White River, well, they are, or the White River Bridge Farms are just underproducing some other area. Notice that they start with efficiency ratings of 3, even though they're just newly constructed. It looks like some of the other farms are able to figure out how to get up to much larger values, but considering we just got ourselves started, we're pretty small. I must have, no, actually that's not one of my constructions. The Columbia farm. I was trying to find something else that's this kind of poorly done, and I'm not, well, some of these other ones that maybe have lower values, I can't tell if the font changes anymore, but I don't think so. I don't know. Anyways, that was a peculiar finding. It's one I'll certainly have to keep in mind and probably have to do a little bit more testing with. But the last thing I'm going to do is run through and give these things, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so, bring it back in and see what the results look like then. All right, and the last part of this is looking at the fertility for a lot of the plantation stuff. So the most widespread crop, you can assume that it's going to have some fertility just about everywhere, is cotton. So we're on our heat maps here, right? Show map filters, and we can see that, you know, in particular, it's this area in and around Vicksburg, maybe over to Tuscaloosa, but there's going to be, you can pretty much plop a farm down or plantation down almost anywhere, and you're going to get something from that. So that you don't have to think about all that much. But if you want your plantations to produce multiple goods, it's a little bit trickier. I mean, it's not hard to get to 2 because cotton is so widespread, but take a look at some of the other things that are produced. Rice, it tends to be concentrated over here, right, around South Carolina. There is this kind of odd patch of really high rice fertility around Chattooga, which is between, north of Chattooga and south of Chattanooga. Well, that's okay. That's it. Then if you want sugar, it's a different part. It's over here, and again, there's like a weird, slightly red area. It looks like up around Knoxville, but for the most part, you're going to be down here in Louisiana. And then if you want your tobacco, you got kind of 3 areas. I would say the area of, you can see Virginia, North Carolina is really good. This other area here of Kentucky and Tennessee is pretty good, and then Missouri's got a little bit, right? It's about 40% or so, so it's not too shabby. That's where they're located. I did find, and I'm just not going to go through all of this, but I did find this one area where you can actually get production of 3 of these in somewhat high quantities. Seems to elude me for now, but it wasn't all that good. The only thing that was this is it, because rice fertility got up to, like, there is one spot I think where it's 13 or 15%. But if you're gonna build, this has 82% fertility for cotton, 64% for sugar, and 11% for rice, and so you could definitely think about building that. Because the fertility is pretty high already for cotton and sugar, the rice is kind of just an add-in. And remember, the rice, I have to go back and take a look at those own production chains that I created, but I'm pretty sure it has an option to be added into the production of food in factories, and I think otherwise it might be produced by consumers, but it doesn't have any other outlets. And the game, I believe, starts with a factory in New Orleans, and so this is one of the spots I've been able to find, kind of the rare spots that have 3 double-digit fertilities for one plantation. So I don't really have anything to build here. I do know that there was, in some testing, there was a spot up here that had so I guess since we left it on the tobacco filter, that's why it looks so red. But I thought there was a spot up and around here that did okay. I guess not. I might have misremembered. All right, so, well, I guess this is okay. 54% cotton, 90% tobacco. So there are those kind of spots, but it's really hard to find, like, a little bit of rice here. It's really hard to find a spot that has, like, double-digit production in 3 of the plantation crops. But if you have more, like, this is something, I say that. It's low fertility for rice and tobacco, but, if you do have other places, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I mean, it's one of the things we can work on as a community to help each other find. One thing I didn't notice when I was looking at it down in Louisiana just a moment ago is the price of the sold goods, but I am noticing it here, where it says price level of sold goods, and I guess they're just kind of amalgamating that cotton, rice, and tobacco. Maybe they all move together, and so they can say that they're pretty expensive. But yeah, at 82%, that's certainly a good deal. I mean, if you had these numbers and the price level of sold goods was through the floor, you probably wouldn't want to do it. But that is one of those other factors. But what I'm going to do now is hit play, and we're going to see what the lumber mills and the farms we constructed end up producing. Alright, so it's been about 6 months. So we're going to take a look at what we have here. We're just going to take a look at the lumber mills. So the Muskogee ones were the low productivity mills. They're still churning out 53,000. Value's gone up to 800,000. The Rockbridge lumber mills were the high fertility one. They're still doing about the same, 261,000. You can see that 3.4 million. It's still about 4 times the value of the Muskogee ones. And again, the only difference was that the Rockbridge had twice the fertility rate, construction costs were the same, workforce is slightly larger at Rockbridge, but that's about 6 months after construction. That's where they are. And then what are we looking at? We're looking for farms. Okay, and we're going to compare. The Corinth farms, which are the surprisingly good ones. So that's 2.7 million, 40 workers, and the production that they do. And I am, for the life of me, not seeing the White River Bridge. That's it. Okay, they're at 2. Oh, they're right. Okay, right there, 2.6 million. So they're still lagging, even though they had twice the fertility of Corinth farms. They're still lagging them in overall value. And if we look here, we can see that their production is it's different. It's kind of hard to see some of it, but the forage looks higher at. We want to stay consistent here with the Corinth farms, right? 19,000 versus 17,000. And if we just hover over it, we can see other things, right? Wool is about 6, crops 5, horses 2. horses 3.5, wool 4, crops 1.5. So it might be the mix of stuff that they are producing that also would affect it. I did not look to proximity to flour mills, which there aren't that many of, but remember, if there's a flour mill near one of them, that's going to demand the crops that they produce, and it's probably going to lead to a rise in the price and all that other stuff. So that's it 6 months out. One of the odd things I found, completely unrelated to this really, but it is related to some of the long-term economic stuff, is that in another tutorial I went on a massive spending spree in the early summer of '63, and then I kind of took a 12-year retrospective. And there was a lot of good and all that other stuff. But one of the things that one of the things that came out in that video was that by, I think, June or so of '64, this wealth per person was up around 0.48. This time I haven't done that building. And so it's only around 0.39. And I'd built a lot of banks and a lot of industrial things and more markets, I think. So clearly the people are not, their wealth is not increasing. It's done nothing. These few constructions, unsurprisingly, have done nothing to kind of get things out. But in other news, because I didn't go on the spending spree, my interest rate is basically almost being lent to for free at this point, and my national debt, unlike my counterparts, is actually going down because I chose not to spend kind of in the last 6 months. So that was doing interesting. Because of the way the crops turned out, I have to do one more test on plantations to see if it works. Alright, and so this bonus test I have to do because I did not expect to find what I did with the farms. And so I'm going to try to build 3 different plantations. So this first one here is an attempt at a 3-crop plantation. So we got cotton and sugar for the most part, a little bit of rice, pretty good workforce, and we're selling for above average. So let's make sure that actually went down. Yeah, so it did. That's that. Now we're going to fly over here, and I think there's an area around Macon where you can pretty much just grow cotton and just about nothing else. So yeah, it's pretty much this area. Now the problem here is that there's less available workforce. So it kind of screws up the test. Well, not right there isn't. Let's do it right there. So we're going to do those farms right outside of Macon, and we'll see how they go. And that's going to be the 1-cropper. And I think we have an area up here where we can get a decent 2-crop. And it's also kind of in this triangle of other areas. So cotton and tobacco, not really that. This is pretty good. Yeah. And the value of the stuff they sell is really high. Lots of workforce available. So we'll go ahead and we'll plop those down. And I'll bring you back in when they're fully completed. Alright, so everything just finished here on September 17th. So this was the 2-crop, or the one that I thought was a 2. Yeah, it is a 2-crop. So we're just putting out cotton and tobacco here. The 1-crop. Let's see where you are. No, we're looking for Macon. There we go. That is pumping out 32. Okay, 32 pieces, not 32,000. I'll say, wow, I didn't think there was any. It's pretty much all cotton there. 14,000, and then the 3-cropper. Let's see if I can remember this one right here. So yeah, cotton, sugar, and all the rest. So that's Marion. Should have got those names down, but we're looking for Marion. It's probably just going to be Macon. But let's make sure we're right. Yeah, Macon. And a 3rd M would make it really easy to remember these. Find them when we go to our goods production. Burkeville. Alright, let's find those. Alright, we don't need lumber mills. We go. Maybe we have to play it forward a little bit before they're going to show up. Let's see if that does it. Columbia. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing. Jeez. That's why they're not going to show up. We're looking at plantations. Alright. Yeah, let's try this again. So, Marion and Macon, right? So, Marion is the 3 crop. That has the lowest value right now. Macon is the 1 crop. That has the 2nd lowest. And the Burkeville is much higher. That's the 2 crop. And again, you know, you got to take a look at what they're producing to get a sense of it. I mean, one of the big differences is that the Burkeville produce a lot of tobacco, and neither Marion nor Macon appear to produce any. And so that could definitely count for it. We can find out how much some of this stuff will matter by looking at just the average price of what they sell. Artillery ammunition. Okay, so cotton's one of them, and so we know that the average price of that is $34, $36. We're also looking. I don't think anybody's producing crops here. So the other ones we're looking at is rice, which is 49, and tobacco, which is almost 52. So you got to keep those numbers in mind. Then when you go back here, you take a look at, all right, who's doing what. So you only have 348 rice. Rice I don't think is that much. Cotton, I think of all of those was the cheapest, and so I think the most expensive thing there might have been, actually, did I even get sugar prices? I don't remember seeing sugar prices. Let's see here. Sugar is 50. So it's pretty much, it's almost the same as tobacco, and it's not actually that different than rice. Almost rice, tobacco, and sugar are pretty much all in the same area. Cotton, I think, is the only one that's a bit cheaper. And so when we take a look at what we're producing here, right? Rice and sugar, it's not that much. Cotton's a lot, but it's the cheapest of all of them. Macon is pretty much just doing cotton. And so, yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is the difference between those two is that Macon, I guess, is doing 2,000 more cotton. But you know what, I'm going to be honest, this actually doesn't make sense. Because where is it here? Well, it doesn't make sense on the face of it, because sugar was selling for more, it was around $50 a piece. And it's doing 4,500 more of those than Macon, which isn't doing any of those. And so one would think that the value of production in Marion is higher than in Macon. I don't understand that. Tobacco, okay, so I mean the fact that this is producing the most, I mean it's basically 26,000 product. This is 14, and this is basically 17,000. But the scale doesn't quite make sense. I mean, we know that we have a larger workforce, but workforce shouldn't determine, right? Workforce should be affecting the production, and you know, maybe they're consumers and other things like that. But the scale here doesn't quite make sense. Since 3 out of those 4 goods trade at basically the same price, and cotton is less than half of them, these numbers should be comparable. And so the fact that we have 17,000 in output of goods and it equals $371,000 in value, and we have a lot less value in smaller production, I don't quite understand, except that I know that value accumulates over time, whereas these production numbers more or less remain the same. So I wouldn't think too hard about all of that. I wouldn't get too hung up on the value stuff. I mean, we're mostly looking at production. And so, at least in the case of this 1 crop, 2 crop, 3 crop, maybe it's because of the crops, but the 2 crops here are definitely doing it right. Seem to be better than the other ones. So, yeah, I mean, this is a learning lesson for me. hopefully y'all learned something, but I also feel like it just kind of raises more questions about how some of this stuff works, because actually the workforce size is not that different, right? 139, 137, 144. Slave ratio is the same throughout. Efficiency is already at 4 stars, even though they just started. So, yeah, I'm confused. But hey, now we know. This was supposed to be short. It did not go short. That's the story of the channel. But yeah, we'll have to think of more stuff to do in the future. But hopefully you learned something from this one.